national self-definition. And that's easy, and you can do it very well and be very stupid. And you can do it particularly well if you're frightened and insecure, and you're worried about the attrition of the new generation, or about immigration, or about any number of things that the world might be throwing at you. But the more difficult path is the path which transcends tribalism, which says, "Laysu sawa," they're not all the same. The one that says, according to a hadith, "الناس معادن كمعادن الذهب والفضة فخيارهم في الجاهلية خيارهم في الإسلام إذا فقهوا." People are mines like mines of gold and silver, and the best of them in the Jahiliyyah are the best of them in Islam once they have come to understanding. That hadith itself presupposes that there are khiyar, the best people in the Jahiliyyah. Laysu sawa, they're not all the same. And this, of course, is the basis of any healthy Muslim community whose concern is not with survival or tribalism or demarcating boundaries or not being like them, but rather with the true prophetic mission, which is to convey the message of La ilaha illallah. But that requires courage. That requires a willingness to be exposed, to enter into argument, and even more difficult, to enter into a situation in which one genuinely listens to others. How easily we forget the fact that other people are really not terribly different from ourselves. That behind all of the doctrines, the different sorts of faces, the different genders, the different classes, the different levels of education, there's a human consciousness that's probably just as worried and confused, or as confident and serene as our own. Human consciousness is a human consciousness, whatever clothing it may have put on as a result of education and accidents of birth and culture. The Quran addresses the soul. Look at Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, the glorious telling of his encounter in Surah Taha with Fir'aun. He does not repeat the words that are put into his mouth by the book of Genesis, which are purely tribal, "Let my people go." He asks for that the Bani Israel should be set free. But he also speaks about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the one who is the very essence of the Quranic understanding and definition of kufr, misguidance. The great wisdom of that story is that what is uppermost in the true believing heart is not them versus us, the people versus the other, but rather truth and falsehood. That's the remarkable wisdom of the recasting of that story. How are we when we confront Fir'aun? And usually we don't, but we might confront his representatives, or we might confront people who are from a civilization that has often internalized some of the worst possibilities of human greed, cupidity, short-sightedness. Is our immediate instinct to reach out, to recognize that there is a soul that is hungry, a soul that needs the thing that everybody needs, without which we can never really be at peace, which is the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A soul that needs to be whole, and that is crying out for a medicine that will heal it. Is that the thing that comes first to our mind when we encounter somebody new who has not been brought up as a Muslim? Or do we immediately, like fools, snap into some kind of tribal thinking, them versus us, rather than the real prophetic insight, which is humanity versus the devil? Everybody potentially is a member of the ummah of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And we must make sure that on the last day, nobody has an argument against us. That those very people who we despised, even our neighbors in this world, because they're just kuffar, do not stand before our Lord and say, "He lived next to me for 20 years, but never bothered to tell me about what he believed. I would have listened." Everybody's interested in Islam now. There are usually contexts in which things can be discussed, but no, he didn't bother because He might have looked at me over the fence as he was mowing his lawn every Sunday morning, but in his heart there was kuffar, kuffar. Are we to be hedgehogs? Or are we to embrace? That's the question, the real question, which we need to ask of ourselves and which also the outside world wishes to ask of us. Because we won't be taken seriously as a religious community if we behave just like a tribe. And we won't be taken seriously as a people of God if we just assume that Islam is a political party. Islam is about truth, or it is not worth very much. Can this truth transcend our tribalism? Will we have the strength really to reach out, to recognize the common humanity that exists in the hearts of others, to recognize that others, like ourselves, are crying out for a healing in the soul? That's the big question, really, that faces the Muslim community today. Mawlana Rumi, Qaddasallahu Sirrahu, tells the story of a woman who's holding a baby. And the baby is crying, and it's crying, and she's trying to go about her tasks, but she can't really concentrate on anything because she's holding this crying baby. And she tries different things. She tries to give it some sweets, lokum, Turkish delight. Doesn't stop the baby crying. She tries to give the baby some kebab. The baby is not interested in the kebab. She tries a nice sweet cup of strong Turkish coffee, but the baby is still crying and she can't get anything done, and things seem to be getting worse. And her whole life is being ruined by this stressful bundle in her arms. And then finally she contemplates and considers and realizes that the most obvious and natural thing is the thing that the baby most craves, and she feeds the baby from her own milk. Mawlana Rumi says that this is what we're all like. There is something within us that is crying and yelling and that wants sustenance. And that thing is our soul, the ruh. And it wants the thing, the only thing that can nourish it and bring it peace. But instead we try and give it all kinds of other things. We go out and book a new holiday, or buy the latest model of a Mercedes, or whatever it might be, but still it doesn't seem to solve the problem. What we really need is the milk, which is the dhikr. And the highest form of dhikr is La ilaha illallah. And when we have that, tatma'innul qulub, the hearts are at rest. That is the responsibility of Muslims here. First of all, to make sure that we're being nourished, and that the sort of Islam in which we're involved is something that is nourishing rather than making us more freaked out and anxious about the state of the world and our families and ourselves. And then, when we have that serenity, to move on to try and convey this life-giving milk to others. Because the world today has everything except what really matters. They have material riches beyond the dreams of Fir'aun. They have unimaginable opportunities for leisure, for healthcare, for education, but still they're stressing out. More and more of them are on antidepressants, Prozac, tranquilizers. The suicide rate, the divorce rate, all the famous indicators of human unhappiness continue to rise. It's our responsibility more than anybody else's to try and resolve that. But we can't resolve it if all we're doing is staying in the mosque saying kuffar, kuffar. And that's mostly what we do. But I've suggested that the reason why we do that is because in fact we're scared. Just as the ancient Arab tribes were kind of scared of each other, that they might raid them by night, who knows. They might kick down your door at 6 a.m. and take you off to Paddington Green. So you say kuffar, kuffar, in the hope that if you say that often enough, things are going to get a bit better. So far, it doesn't seem to be working too well. What if instead of that, we actually grow a bit and grow up a bit and start saying human souls, human souls, human souls that might have a big argument against us on the Yawm al-Qiyamah when we're strutting about thinking that we're the ones who are going to be fine. What if they have a stronger argument against us than we have against them? What if the judgment proceeds along lines that we find terrifyingly surprising, but that in the aftermath make a lot of sense?